All right, everyone, we are here with two very special guests. We are joined by Jessi and Mayci from The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We are ready to tackle this entire series and talk about your lives.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
We're excited to be here.
Oh my God.
It's got to be an absolute whirlwind. First of all, how are you guys feeling now that the show is out? And what was the waiting period like between when you wrapped filming and it airing? Like what was going through your mind during that time?
Well, I feel like we're shocked. Like, I don't think we thought this would be #1 on Hulu. Like,
No.
we had no idea how big this was going to be. I think when you're in it and you're watching your own life, you're like, it's not that exciting, right? But, like, when you look at it from the outside perspective, I'm like, okay, I can see it. I think the waiting period was like, when is it happening? When's it happening? It's just, like, a lot of unknowns. And I feel like we were not in the loop until, like, it's like, okay, it's coming out in a month. It's like, oh, like, you just don't really get a lot of information.
And then your life goes back to normal.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like overnight.
It's been overnight, and it's just crazy.
And you guys obviously knew that people were interested in your lives from Mom Talk.
Yeah.
Which is the amount of times, do you think there's a counter on how many times Mom Talk
Can
was
Mom
said?
Talk survive?
Yeah.
That's been my favorite thing is like, I don't know if you guys saw like when Justin Timberlake was arrested and it was
the
like,
world
is
tour.
this going to ruin the tour? And I've just, in my head, it's like I'm walking down the street and I'm like, will Mom Talk survive?
Yes. Is Mom Talk
Yes.
Mom
Oh
Talk
my
really
God.
survive this?
Yes.
Do you
Will
think
Mom Talk survive this?
do you think
Do you
Mom-
guys think Mom Talk
do you think
will
Mom Talk
survive
is surviving
I mean,
this
we're
show?
still going strong for the most part. Macy's
Okay,
like,
Mayci has a different answer. What do you feel about it?
I feel like most of us are going strong.
group is
There's a
broken
lot
up a
of
little.
tea going on TikTok everywhere. There's some issues in the friend group for sure.
Can you fill us in for the listeners who maybe aren't so caught up? Can you fill us in what's going on online right now, separate from what happened on the show?
Yeah, so I mean, like, the show came out, right? It's clear who the villain is, and I think that's been really hard for her. And so she's now leaning in, you know?
it was an
and-
interesting tactic.
I did look at her
And
TikTok.
the girls are fighting because of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's a mess. I'm not gonna lie, it's a mess.
I've like let loose on her for sure. I'm
Yeah.
like, you're a
She's
psychopath.
brutal.
Like, yeah.
Like texting?
I will
That,
say,
Like public comments.
and public.
and public,
yes.
yeah.
I will say you guys are honest with each other,
Yes.
and I respect you for that. Like, there are a lot of shows in reality TV where the commentary is behind people's backs.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised to see it a lot of moments when you guys sat down all together. Like, you did not hold back, whether it was talking to Taylor, talking to Whitney, talking to Jen about her husband. You guys were like, your husband fucking sucks.
Yeah.
He will never change.
It's
Here's
crazy.
the thing.
Yeah.
If you're going to film a show like that, you guys have to be honest. But it seems like that was the case before the show even started. You
Yeah,
wouldn't
exactly.
just start pulling that out of nowhere.
Yes.
You said that you have been texting.
Yeah.
Can you read some of your texts? Or
Oh my
no?
gosh. Well, so what happened was me and Whitney got in an argument online, and then she put stuff on her story. I put stuff on my story. Then she starts DMing me, and she's like, well, your comment's deleted. And I was like, no, here it is, babe. And I like sent her a screenshot, and she's like, oh, thanks. And I was like, so is this really you? Or are you just like leaning so hard into the villain? Like, what are you doing? And then she didn't respond. So I'm like, interesting.
How has this affected your friendship? Because you were the last man standing, it seemed, when the season ended, Mayci.
So I feel like it's been hard for sure. And for me, once everything happened in the show and you see at the end of it, like, she didn't come to my event, that right away, like, made it so we weren't as close anymore. Because I was like, okay, like, I literally had your back through everything, and like the one thing I need support on, you're not there. So that was like a bit frustrating. So I feel like since then we haven't been as close, but also because like she isolated herself. Like, I still reached out to her, like, that she just didn't really want to see me, like, because I was friends with them. And then, you know, I thought we were cool. We had to go on some press tour trips and stuff together, and then she's posting personal messages of ours online, and I'm like,
She's unhinged
okay,
right
like,
now. It's
maybe we're not
weird.
cool. I don't know, because I texted her when the show first come out, because I know that she was going to be the villain, you know, to check in on her, and she didn't respond, and then she starts posting personal messages. So I'm like, well, maybe we're not good. I have no idea. We're definitely not as close, regardless of that happening, as friends as we were before we filmed the show.
Yeah.
You know, when anybody starts posting personal messages, that's like when you've lost them, because you're like, that's last resort. You're like,
Well,
you have
it's
nothing
messed
to
up.
do.
It's
breaking the trust.
To try and
Yeah, it makes me like not trust anyone.
Yeah.
I'm like, if we were like such good friends and you're posting your
Yeah.
personal messages and you didn't ask me or respond to me and you're just blasting it online.
That totally crosses the line.
Oh,
I
what
think.
I was really pissed off. I'm not gonna lie.
Meanwhile, I just asked you to read your messages.
I know, and then I just like let it all
yeah,
out.
I'm like,
well,
that totally,
me and her aren't
that totally
friends,
crosses
though.
a line, but tell me more.
But
yeah, no, I think it's different when it's someone you're friends with and you trust and you're texting
and
them.
Macy's
yeah.
always been in her corner, so
Yeah.
for her to let Macy down is disappointing.
Yeah, it was disappointing.
Yeah, I think that's so fair. I would love to know some, I guess, background information too, because I think the show opens up and we kind of we get some background on some people, but not necessarily everybody.
Yeah.
And it seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, like kind of a different level of commitment to their faith from different people, and they're in it more or less. Where do you guys stand personally?
So I'm ex-Mormon now.
Okay.
So I left the church about 5 years ago.
Okay.
So that's why I'm the one like drinking on the show and going to Chippendales and things like that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm active in the church. I'm labeled as a saint, which I definitely don't feel like a saint, but I'm like, I guess maybe compared to the next Mormon, maybe I am. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just got put in that group because I got invited to the baby blessing. So
Can you, for people who are not like sure what that means, can you describe what that means? Like
to be active?
And considered like a saint?
Yeah, so like I go to church every Sunday. I actually teach 5-year-olds in the church like on Sunday. I'm a worthy temple recommend holder, which means like I can go in the LDS temples that everyone probably sees as like the castles and stuff. Everyone calls them castles. And yeah, so what does it mean to be?
You said you're considered a saint.
Oh, yeah. So I guess I'm considered a saint. On the show, basically, I got invited to a baby shower, and some of the other girls who they said weren't as spiritual. Is that what they said?
Like, we don't want bad
got
feelings
uninvited.
Like, oh, okay.
It's not like they weren't invited; they got uninvited.
Uninvited.
Yeah.
That's what pissed me off. I'm like, I had it in my calendar, and if you didn't uninvite me, like I had to hear from Mayci that we were uninvited, so I would have shown up.
And it's funny because that actually happened off camera, and it's sad, but it was like really funny. I was at lunch with Demi after we filmed something, and she's like, "Hey, I'm looking at this dress for the baby blessing," and like I think the day before Jen's like saying that she wasn't invited anymore, and I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Are you sure you're invited to that?" Like I didn't know what to say, and it was like so awkward that we were both just like laughing. So I'm like, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but like this is awkward, like.
Right, and you guys can like coexist even though you left the church, and like that you guys, you know, it's your own feelings on it, right? For the most part, what was that decision like for you
to leave the church? It was hard because in our community, like it can be like looked down upon and people think you're lost and that you'll come back someday. So it was definitely hard, but I have a great family. My dad's not active. My sisters aren't. My mom is. So that makes it a little tricky, but she's super accepting. But I know people who are like, if you leave the church, you are going to hell. And I definitely have people who feel that way. So it's hard. That's why I'm a sinner. You know, I'm looked down upon. I get uninvited to things. That's pretty normal.
I think it's also part of the culture though.
Yeah.
Because like I say this on every single podcast, I feel like it's so annoying, but like I'm from California, and the culture in California for Mormons is so different than Utah. Like if someone left the church, it's like, okay, like I wish you the best, like have
that's
a great,
not
like
how Utah is.
You know what I mean? Whereas in Utah, it's like, oh, you know, she's going downhill. It's just different.
Yeah.
would you consider moving out of Utah?
Yes and no. So I have a couple businesses there. So I feel like it's like a good home base, but I travel so much that I feel like I get the best of both worlds. But it is hard being ex-Mo in Utah for sure.
That makes a lot of sense.
When you guys were all approached for, you know, a reality show, how did you originally feel about it? Because it all really started like when everything blew up, it was kind of just assumed that the whole group was like everyone was like, they're all swingers, like it's everybody.
Everyone's swinging with each other.
How did you guys feel about like being asked to do a reality show where you like I need to make sure that like the record is straight and all those things?
I think a lot of the girls saw it as an opportunity to clear it up and tell the actual story, because you watch the show, you realize it was just Taylor, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like for me, it was like we were already doing like mom talk, doing videos together in this friend group. We're friends. Like, why not take the opportunity to do a show and show it like we're really like behind the scenes? Because you only see like 10 to 30 seconds of us online. Like, you don't know how we really are in real life. So for me, I thought it would be fun to just like show that. And I was like, and if I hate it, I'll just do one season and leave. Like, but I thought I had a great time. So I'll do it again.
I think it made our friend group closer.
It did.
Except Whitney. But I feel like as a whole, like we bonded a lot.
For sure.
And I think that is true, like what you said, like when everything blew up on TikTok, everyone was like, oh my gosh, they're all swinging with each other. Like this is totally opposite from what we thought happened. And then watching the show, you come to realize that's really not the case, but you guys are all involved in each other's lives, and you do have a lot to say about each other's lives. And Mayci, we saw with you and Dakota and Taylor, there was a lot going on there. You received a message about Dakota.
Big cliffhanger.
Yes.
How did you feel receiving that message and then telling Taylor, because you have to tell her?
Yeah. I mean, receiving it, I was like, oh shit. I was like, because it didn't seem like it was completely fake. Like, I get messages where I'm like, okay, I don't think this is real.
Right.
That one, seems a little bit real to me. I was like, maybe, but the thing I had to consider is like, maybe the timeline is wrong. Like maybe this person thinks that they were together and they weren't. So that's why I was like, I need to tell her regardless, because if I was pregnant with this man's baby, I would want to know. But it's a hard situation to be in, because it's like, well, she's pregnant and like they're already having issues. Like, I don't want to stir the pot. So I feel like I had I was in a weird space where I was like, what do I do? But I knew I had to tell her at some point, and I was like, better tell her before the baby comes. Because I feel like postpartum can be harder than pregnancy. Yeah. So I was like, we should just do it now.
Yeah. And you're so right. It's like, well, it's not like she can leave and never see him again. Like they are having
co-parents,
a baby.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Like somebody, you got to tell her.
Exactly.
That's a tough position to be put in as a friend too. To like
it was
receive
hard.
a message. Yeah. So I can imagine.
What was it like also kind of sitting in the room with them, like as they're fighting, and you're just like, why am I here?
Well, that was the craziest thing too, because like I went there to have a conversation with Dakota, and like that was just so crazy that it happened. Like it wasn't meant to happen. I think Taylor's just triggered by something, and then it was like, all of a sudden I'm in the middle of a fight just watching it, and I was like, oh. But I will say that I like from seeing that I was able to see his perspective for the first time, where I always see hers, because she would come to me on like behind camera being like, oh my gosh, he's doing this, he's doing that. So of course I don't like him because I'm hearing all these things.
Now you're taking a front row seat to how they argue with each other.
And so I think that actually helped me in a way, because I was like, okay, I can understand parts of where he's coming from. It doesn't show it all in the show, obviously, but I was able to understand his perspective. I don't think he necessarily goes about it the right way. I was like, if it gets any louder, I'm gonna have to step in a little bit, because he's like he's kind of loud, but yeah, I definitely didn't feel like I should be there, but I'm like, I'm glad that you're comfortable enough to argue in front of me, I guess, or maybe you're arguing in front of everyone, I don't know.
And then how do you move forward like with that as a friend, right? Because now in the future, if you see them fight or you hear something, do you step in? Do you stand aside? Like at the same time, because it's at what point, like, do we give it a rest? Like these two can't be together.
Yeah.
Who says that, or who just steps back?
I mean, it's hard because like you could tell Taylor, I've given her so much advice. She does like the opposite of what I say.
Yeah, even to her mom. Like you see her mom give her advice.
Yeah, so I feel like it's like hard. Like, I mean, they still have arguments here and there and stuff, but I do see
they're together still. Yeah,
they're still together.
We were with
so
them
like
last night.
I was on the flight here with them, so I'm like hanging out with Dakota now, I guess, a little bit. It's like I do see like where he's coming from in certain situations. Like they definitely have a hard relationship dynamic for sure, but like they're working on it. They do therapy. So I mean, like I only wish the best for them, because they have a kid together now. Like I hope they can work it out. I really hope that they can
once
get over
there's
like,
a kid
toxic.
involved, like it changes everything.
And I think it's hard because it's like it's reality TV.
Yeah.
Like like things are gonna happen, and I feel like it's gonna be hard in their relationship regardless.
Look,
if we do a season 2, I feel like it's gonna be hard for them again.
Totally. I give her a lot of credit just for like showing that on TV, because there's a lot of especially like in a first season where she's having those conversations with him on camera, they're talking about on camera the arrests, the whole thing. There was a lot. Like
there was a lot.
She really put a lot out there. So like I can respect that aspect when you're making reality TV. I think there was a lot of obviously husband drama. We saw that. We saw the Vegas trip, all those things. It seems like more husbands were involved with the show than others. How did your husbands feel about the show?
They're both pretty chill.
Yeah. My husband is like, he freaking wouldn't hurt a fly. So he's just kind of like, yeah, if you want me to film, sure. If you don't, I don't care.
I feel like our husbands filmed way more than they showed, because we only got 8 episodes, so they had to cut it down. But mine is always down for anything. He's like, all right, I'll bring a flask to the party. Who cares what people think? Like,
I don't think my husband would do that, but he's
right.
Yeah, but he won't do things for the plot, but he'll support me in any way he can.
Well, because it's probably like a good thing when you watch the season back and it's like, oh, we filmed a lot more with our husbands, but they must be too boring for like.
No, seriously,
it's
such a good thing.
In a good way.
Yeah, you're feeling blessed that you were like, they didn't show that because
I'm glad my husband's not Zach right now.
TV.
Exactly.
100%.
Seeing the way, like seeing that dynamic with Jen and Zach, and how she like immediately was like, oh my God, so happy that happened. We're so good now. Like, how hard is that to watch that happen to a friend like that?
Oh, it's so hard.
I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Like we said way more that didn't even make it, but that wasn't the first conversation like that we'd had with Jen, and it won't be the last, I'm sure. It's really hard when you are a good friend and you've seen the behind the scenes, and then she comes back like everything was meant to be, and we know it's not true. And as a good friend, I think I couldn't not say something. I would feel fake if I didn't.
And I think too, like I've been in a past abusive relationship, emotionally, physically, whatever. So this is like more emotional in this, and I think you see yourself in that person. I'm like, I was you to my friends. Like, everything's great. So it's like, I know it's a lie. Like, I can see right through it, and it's hard to watch it. But it's like, how much do you step in? Like, so we give our opinions, but it's like, that's all we can do.
But when Zach said things about all of our marriages, I think that's when we felt like we had a right to then step in.
Exactly. As soon as somebody says something about you, then you're like, okay, well, you open the door.
Exactly.
Totally. And did they move to New York?
No, they ended up going to Arizona last minute.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
He switched med schools, I think.
That's a lot closer.
Yeah. She's in Utah a lot, so that's nice.
Is she still allowed to be in Mom Talk?
I mean, it's hit and miss. I feel like there's days we don't hear from her, and then there's days we do. So.
Okay.
It's you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes with her, I would say, because like
she's
she's
still
always
in the group chat.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
But I feel like to one thing, it's always like everything's amazing. So like we don't really know what's going on. It's like we're just knowing what she's telling us.
Exactly. Jessi, because you left the church.
Yes.
Is that why you feel like more open to speak on things? Because you feel like your eyes have been opened a little bit more?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that I've lived so many experiences in and out of the church. And growing up with parents that one was active, one wasn't, I always say like I had the best of both worlds. So I feel like I have like a well-rounded version of Utah Mormon culture and also real life. Yeah. So I feel like I'm not shy about my opinions.
Can I ask you guys about the opening
God.
scene that plays at the beginning of every
Do you want to borrow the blue coat?
Yeah, like what is that about? Is that something that really happens? Because I think everyone was like, what? Does everyone go to church in matching powdered blue coats?
No. Well, it's so funny. When we were filming that, we had so many cute old ladies who were going to the temple coming up to us like, are you guys bridesmaids in a wedding? And we're like,
I was like, yeah, totally.
And then they see the show and they're like, what?
Yeah. That one was hard for me. Like before we even went there, I was like, no. Yeah. And I was in our group chat with just the girls, and I was like, you guys, we got to push against this. It's gonna make us look like polygamists or FLDS. Like this is gonna look so bad. It also seems like it's gonna be disrespectful, and I don't want to ever come off like that. But half the girls didn't care, half did. And so the problem is if you're not all banded together, like we're doing it, you have to do it. Yeah. So like we had to do it. There was 2 other things they wanted to do that I said I absolutely refuse to do that, and so we didn't, thankfully. So I feel like I met in the middle. But even then, I was so embarrassed. Like I was like, this is the most embarrassing, cringiest thing in my life, and I want to die.
I will say, like the intro's a slay. Like it is interesting, and like it's videography
but
is good, but
give Handmaid's Tale
so cringy.
The song.
I was like shooting the producers a bit after. I was like, so next season are we gonna wear red coats and put bonnets on like Handmaid's Tale? Is that the plan?
Definitely embarrassing.
Those are those moments where I'm like, are they trying to make us look bad? Like I genuinely was like, wait, you guys, like, is this a trap? Like I was like freaking out.
Because I think like for obviously production, they're looking at things and like you guys are all holding hands and maybe it plays into the whole swinging thing that they're trying to like the whole right. So you can see like where they're coming from, but you're like,
I understand.
I don't feel good doing this.
And you're like, are they making fun of us?
Yes.
Like,
that's what I was like. It's
because you're like, we are real people. Like we don't want you to just make fun of us the whole time.
Yeah, I'm like, so much.
And this is like my religion. Like I'm active in the church. So I'm like, I don't want to be disrespectful.
Exactly.
If we get another season, it'll be interesting to see what our intro ends up being.
I hope it's not anything with the temples. I'm like, can we not?
Yeah, right.
What was the reaction in Utah to this show?
It was bad. But like when the trailer came out.
Is there like a Facebook group like Utah?
Oh, it was more so just TikTok. Everyone was making videos like hating on us. Like,
and Instagram. The comments are brutal.
People hated us. Like I own a hair salon and people were texting my stylist like, I can't support you anymore. And so for a minute I was like, what am I doing? Right. Now it's great. It's kind of turned.
You've probably gotten a lot of business.
Oh, it's been amazing.
It's got like, Mayci, is it hard for you because I could see, you know, you participated in the show, you're also active, so I could see like perhaps you go to church on Sunday and they're like, she did the show.
I like quite literally don't give an F. Yeah. And I say this too because like I got pregnant outside of marriage and I had to go to church like 9 months pregnant. My parents would teach classes. So I'm rolling in alone, like, and I'm like, whatever, no shame. If I could do that, I could do anything. So I really don't care what people think at the end of the day. It's my relationship with God. Yeah. And that's all that matters. So they can think what they want.
Yeah. That is a wonderful outlook to have on it. I mean, how else are you supposed to get through life?
Who wants to think about criticism, like let it eat them up? I'm like, I don't care. I've never cared what people think of me. And like, it's hard to be in this industry, in this career if you do. So you have to just deal with it.
Especially when you've been through huge things within the church and your life prior to this moment.
Exactly.
It's not like all of a sudden you're like thrown into, you know.
Exactly.
What's the plan with Mom Talk going forward?
Will it survive? I don't know. Will it survive? I mean, I feel like as a group, like, Whitney's a little bit on the outskirts, but our hope is that she will eventually come around.
Do you think it's a little bit or a lot of it?
It's a lot. I mean, I wouldn't be, unhappy if she never came back. But at the same time, I know she's pregnant and hormones can definitely play into that. So if she came back and like we could all have open conversations and there could be accountability, I think we could move forward.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And I think like Mom Talk's going to continue whether she wants to come back or not.
There's still 7 of us.
Can we also clarify for people that there is not like a Mom Talk like account?
No,
that's like, because I think that's been
start one?
I think that's been confusing
I don't
to
know
people.
how you guys haven't.
No, we should
I think
actually.
that's been confusing to people that they thought like, oh, they all are like a, because when it's
Like a
described
content house,
as
yeah.
a creator house, it's like, oh, then maybe there's one account where they're all, but it's like you all have your own separate stuff and you appear in each other's stuff and it's like a group.
It's a collab.
But there's not one individual.
Exactly. Well, that's how Mom Talk started, is because we all had our own brands. Like most of us had like our own TikTok accounts, and then it was like, oh, these are other moms who are like Mormon in Utah. They're like they're close by. Like, why don't we collaborate, get the views up, the likes up, and like you know help each other out and make it like a little side, not like business because we're not making money together, but like just building our own brands personally. Turn into Mom Talk, but there never was like an account for it.
There's a new season plot. We need to create.
We
need to buy a house together.
Right. Exactly. And but I feel like if you do create the account, then you'll be like, do we post it on this one? Do
It's
we post it on
true,
our personal?
yeah.
It'll get tricky.
That's
Even
what's hard.
trying
Is like
to
you have
decide
to
between all of our accounts who gets what.
Right.
you have to double content. You know?
Right.
Sometimes
It's like
we're-
whoever comes up with the idea, it's like,
exactly.
it's my idea.
Right.
Like,
There is a bunch of you.
Yes.
When, not to go back to the beginning, but I am. When all of the swinging stuff came out on TikTok, what was your guys' like initial reaction? Did you know that was happening? Was it talked about a lot? Like, I want to know more about this.
Yeah, I mean, I always say this, but I already had a feeling they were swingers before it like came out. And
what gave you that vibe?
so there's 2 things. First thing is like Taylor would do these like little parties, and I'd look at her Instagram stories, and she's like wearing like they'd be like wearing like lingerie type bras, and like they'd like for Valentine's Day they had cookies that said like mommy, daddy. I'm like, this just feels weird. Like there's something about this is like off. Like I don't know what it was. It's giving like college, but they're not in college, so I'm like it's giving swinger. And then I got invited to go to like cabin party by one of the husbands who was like swinging, I guess. He didn't say like come swing or anything, but he invited
maybe
me.
he wanted to swing with you.
Yeah, I guess
feeling her
so.
out.
Yeah.
He invited me and my husband to the cabin party, and then the next day the wife like didn't text me, so I was like, oh, like okay. And then I texted her and she's like, like I don't know if there's enough room, like there's not enough beds. But like the night before he's like, oh, there's like 40 rooms, there's plenty of room. And then she said the opposite, so I'm like, oh, she doesn't want me to come. And then I was like, what if they're swinging and they like don't want me, like she don't want me to be part of it, or like I don't know. So that's
he
like
did, but she did.
Yeah.
that's where like the theory.
They're swinging, but there's rules.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I like told Michaela and Whitney we had a girls' night like a week later, I was like, I have a theory, but like don't tell anyone because I don't want to like start a rumor or like that's not true that they're like swinging. And like had this whole thing, and then like literally like a month later it all came out, and I was like, I knew it. Like so like it wasn't super shocking, but at the same time it is because they're so young, and like usually swingers are older, right? Like they're later in their marriage and they're bored and they want to spice it up. But these people are like in their 20s, like mid 20s. Like it's still shocking,
Yeah, it is shocking. Like I'm not gonna sit here and act like that is something that I'm like, yeah, I think that's like,
It's so normal.
No, it's I think it's shocking.
And part of me thinks it's because they didn't have like those younger party years like as Mormons, and so then now it's like they're exploring and experimenting, and like I'm like, you should have got it out when you're like 18, 19 or whatever, and you did it, and now you're doing it now. So
Yeah, totally. I totally get that. I mean, and things like just go viral and you don't even really fully get the context of everything. Like you see those TikToks and you make it like I remember seeing Whitney's dancing in the hospital video like go viral and being like, what the fuck is this? And then when they played the clip during the show, I was like, oh my god, this is the same girl.
Oh, you didn't realize?
Like, no, I didn't realize it was the same person.
Wow.
And I was like, just because I remember when there was like people were like that clip just went the video just went mega viral because everyone was like,
now,
what
so
is happening? Yeah, she's changed her hair a couple times. Like, I just and I was like, this is a whole. So when they showed the clip, I was like, oh my god, this is the same. This is the same person.
So much lore there.
Yeah. So it is interesting because there aren't that many reality shows where everyone is like really on TikTok.
Where they're like known before.
Yes.
It's usually after.
Yes. It's like either one comes before the other, and they haven't really like maybe the younger like LA world they've tried to do it and hasn't I feel like fully
the D'Amelios.
like, but even with the D'Amelios like they just kept it like their family
and it wasn't totally like anything we hadn't seen before,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Like
Yeah.
we've seen the Kardashians,
Right,
you know,
right.
so it's
Yeah.
like
So
we
this
get
is
it. Like this is
interesting,
a whole other world.
Everybody
Yes.
was like on TikTok already, and then the show comes after.
Yeah.
So it is very interesting.
And
'cause,
everyone
of course,
knew
Stace-
the backstory for the
Yeah.
most part about the swinging.
Yeah, the
so
scandal.
Right,
It gave us an
exactly.
audience.
With
Exactly.
the, sorry, I have more questions. With the
Yeah.
swinging, and it's like the Mormon community, right?
Yeah.
Aren't they not supposed to be?
Yeah, and I think that's why it was such a big deal. Is because
Okay.
Mormons are like not supposed to have sex before
right.
marriage.
So,
not
like
cheat,
having
obviously,
sex out of your marriage
is so no.
Is
Right.
it like
Yes.
scandal? Yeah.
That's
I
why
think
it
that
blew
it's
up.
scandal all around,
Yeah.
and not just in the
But
Mormon
even more
community.
so, yeah,
That
yeah,
is
yeah,
just
right.
big scandal for
Yeah.
anywhere.
And I don't think Taylor even came out being like, I'm a Mormon swinger. It was just like, I did swinging, but people knew she was Mormon, so then they started putting it hand in hand.
Yeah.
Right. So then it was like, well, then everybody's got to be.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh, they're lying
the
to
secret
everybody."
that they all
Exactly.
have.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
People
And it's
still
just like an
think-
assumption's made because they're like, oh, well, those are her friends.
Yeah.
Right.
And
people
she did
still
say like
think,
everyone was
like-
involved. And
Yeah, and that's why people were like, "Okay, so whose husband was with which
Yeah,
one?"
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
yeah, it was wild.
People still think we're swingers that we're just like denying it. Like I got that comment the other day, like they're just denying, like hiding it. I bet they really all are. So I'm like, well, think what you
They'll
want.
think what they
whatever.
want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can confirm you guys are not.
We are not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
How has there been any talks or any thoughts on another season?
I mean, it's looking like people want it,
Yeah.
so we're
Yeah.
hoping.
They
I mean,
definitely do.
You guys, I mean, like I
Yeah.
said, you really left us on a cliffhanger too. I was
Yeah.
shocked. When the episode 8 ended, I was like, wait, that's it? Like,
Yeah.
what happens? Like, I was like,
makes people want
what
more.
does Jenna say?
Yes. I mean, there's nothing like currently in the works, but like, you know, we think it's likely based on how well it's done, but there's nothing like confirmed yet.
Okay, well,
So
fingers
keep watching,
crossed.
guys.
Have you guys? You're doing a lot of press.
Yes.
You're walking on the streets. Have people stopped you guys to be like, "Oh my god, we
Yes.
love the show"?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's crazy.
which is like, so it's not surprising, but it is like, because in Utah it happens, right? Because like we're all in Utah, but like in New York, like so far from Utah, it's like
Thought
kind of
no
shocking.
one here would have seen it, but our billboard
Oh.
was at Times Square.
Yeah.
Everybody
yeah.
has seen it. Like
Oh my
our
God.
listeners were like, "You guys have to watch.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
you need to watch. Everybody's watching. Like people are like, this is homework. We need to dissect every
Oh
single
my
bit and piece
gosh.
of this." So people
know.
are really loving it, and they're very interested. I mean, to be fair, it's just something that's different from
Yeah.
what we're
Yeah.
used to.
It's
Yes.
true. And
Totally.
it's so interesting. Even before the show, like on TikTok, everyone was so interested about like Utah culture, like the sodas and the long hair and Mormons. And so
Yeah.
I
The soda
think
thing is so funny.
it's so wild. It is.
It is.
I like how you mentioned the long hair.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a thing.
It really is, and your business must be thriving.
It's amazing. I
because
have an extension
everyone
company.
wants the
Everyone's
extension.
wanting long hair now. I'm like,
Yes.
amazing.
And I think what's so like what has been great about the show too is you're locked in because there's so many of you. Like there's it's a big group,
Yes.
which is so helpful because everyone like has their different marriage, their different kind of level of faith, perhaps
Yes.
if they're in, they're out.
Yeah.
Because then it's like everybody's been. I'm sure you've seen like the memes and all the jokes. They're like, thank God they put the names and age underneath every time one of them talks because
I wouldn't know who it was.
there's
Yes.
some confusion on who's who and who's married to who and
It's
what.
so true. And a lot of us look similar, like same
Yes.
hair color, long hair. So yeah, it makes
Yes,
sense.
there was many a times where I was watching and you and Demi were
Yes.
doing a scene together and I was like, wait a second.
Who are these girls? Are they twins?
Wait
Yeah.
a second.
We get that all the time.
Right. I think
Yeah.
that's why at first I was like, wait, who's doing what?
Yeah.
Who's doing who?
Yeah.
I've gotten
Going in-
messages about Fruity Pebbles, and I'm like, okay, yeah.
You're like, that's not me.
Here's to me, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a little frustrating though when you get messages about something that you didn't do where you're like, that's not me?
Yes and no, just because I get it. Because
Yeah.
even before the show, people told us we looked alike,
Yeah.
and we're such close friends, and we have like a lot of the same mannerisms. So I'm like, I get it.
Right.
But at
Yeah.
the same time, like as time goes on, I'm like, I hope we can each stand out
Right.
on
and
our
at the
own.
end of
Yeah.
the day, like if you correct one, you can't correct everybody. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You can't be in your DMs all day long like, no, this
Yeah.
is me.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Jessi, you were super open about like your, work you've gotten done
Yeah.
and surgery and, your
labiaplasty.
new labia, your brand new labia.
Yeah.
Has there been anything like post show that you've done that you've loved or?
I haven't done anything
Okay.
else yet. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, yeah.
season 2, I'll get a
Yeah,
nose
yeah.
job. I don't know. But plastic surgery is huge in Utah.
Yeah.
Like, it's like such a vain state. Like, Botox, filler, extensions.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I think you had said, like, Mormons, we treat our bodies like temples. So everyone's just, like, so well groomed that it just kind of becomes the norm.
They take like really good care of themselves.
Yeah.
Like in
yeah,
Utah.
everyone gets boob jobs at 21. It's wild.
Right. So that's so interesting
Yeah.
to me, the way that you like just you said your body's like a temple.
'Cause that
but
seems
it's like-
opposite.
right.
Yeah.
It does seem like a little bit opposite, but I get what you're saying.
just
where
painting the temple.
Yeah,
like
right,
you want it to
right.
be, you're just like they strive for perfection.
Yes.
How was the labiaplasty?
It was amazing. I'm so glad I did it. Because after you have kids, like it's different. It hangs a little more. And I just feel like I'm 15 again. It's great.
Yeah. No, look, I loved how honest you were
about it.
How
right?
open and like everybody were like, girls, come look.
Yeah.
I literally forgot I did that. And then my husband watched that scene. He's like, there were cameramen in the room. I was like,
I'm like, you should see what we do off camera. Like,
we're all unhinged. Yeah.
we're so unhinged.
Oh man. Well, I'm sure the cameraman production probably got even more of a show.
I'm sure they loved it.
They could probably make a season 2 from the footage that they didn't
literally
release.
to be in her bra all the time, me with my pants down, like
yeah. Well, I love how open and honest you guys have been.
Yep.
I think everybody has loved that, to learn something that we're not all used to, and just thankful that you guys are so open and honest. And like you said, like you know, filming the intro, and it's like you're not trying to like mock who you are. Like this is really who you guys are and where you come from.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's an interesting balance, and I think it has been like a fascination recently, whether it's all the different, you know, after Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, like that's everybody's been like, wait, what's going on here? So
do you guys watch?
Yeah, and I know a few of them, so it's interesting to see like
well,
the
they're in the beauty industry too.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
It's got to be, and I know it's interesting. I even just watched a TikTok that Lindsay Arnold, from Dancing with the Stars.
I used to do her hair. We know her, yeah.
She like posted, she was like, oh, I was watching, you know, people have been asking me at the show, like I am also a member of the church, and this is the things that I noticed, and blah blah blah. And she just kind of made a video to be like, hey, let's also remember that they're making a TV show.
Exactly.
You
It
know,
has to
and
be entertaining.
They
as
have
well.
to be entertaining.
Right.
You know, she's like, I'm on
see.
reality TV. I get it. Like you have to.
She had a good perspective. For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it is very interesting. Everyone's going to want to watch a second season, so hopefully it works out.
Let's
but
hope.
Thank you guys.
Thank you
so
guys
much for coming in and talking to us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can't wait to see what else happens.
Yes. And everybody follow on TikTok. And maybe we'll see a Mom Talk account.
Yeah, maybe.
Or next step.
Season 2, baby.
Right. Season 2.
Just bio.
It survived.
Oh my God.
change it.
We have to.
Thanks, guys.
It's so good.
Thank you.
Guys.
That was so fun. Thanks
That
for
was
having
fun.
us,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you guys for coming
Yes.
in.